This is my friend Paulette Dupré. And she is standing in front of her summer home, which is in Gaverlac. Her summer home was in Gaverlac, which was a hamlet of about 3 homes in France. And I have to tell you that Paulette became like a second mother to me. She was vivacious, bubbly. She just to begin with, to be in her presence was a treat. And a scant 6 months after I lost my mother, it was like this person was sent to me by Providence. And so we did go see her in Gaverlac and enjoyed her cooking, enjoyed her love of the earth, She loved to garden. She loved to cook. She grew up in Reunion, which is off the coast of Madagascar, close to Madagascar. Like I said, she was born in 1921, and she spent the war years in Reunion because they couldn't go home. But the first money that she earned was from the vegetables that she grew in Reunion. And her task at the family home was taking care of 212 rose bushes that were grown in her parents' home. And so I was very lucky, okay? When we talk about people canning food, okay, she was the consummate person to use the fruits of her garden and can hundreds of jars of fruit and vegetables. Sometimes she took them to the local farmer's market. She would get a real gleam in her eye when she'd say, "Oh, I took it to the farmer's market and people bought my plum jams." And she had this thing that she made with lemons, and it was kind of a relish. And so she would sit there and cut the lemons just exactly right, et cetera, to make this relish. But I was lucky enough to be in Gaverlac several summers, not for as long as one would like, but the one fantastic year that we were there when the fruit started ripening, then I got to pick red currants. By this time, Paulette was not as healthy as she might have been. And so she had to sit and direct. And we picked fruit and ended the day. She always cooked. I remember the first time we were there as a family. And she said, "Well, I don't know what I'm gonna cook for supper for you." And we said, whatever, right? You always have bread in the house. You always have cheese in the house. And she says, no, just wait. So she goes out to the garden and she comes back with a basket full of courgettes, which we know as zucchini squash, calabacitas. If you're from around here, calabacitas. And so in less than 15 minutes, she had made courgette soup. And it was one of the first recipes that I brought back from France. And it's really, really simple. It's courgettes, enough water to cover them, some bouillon cubes, cook them, put them in the blender, get it as thick as you want, and add the Laughing Cow cheese. She made it with little wedges of Laughing Cow cheese, but you can substitute cream cheese if you want to do cream cheese. But she That was the first recipe that she shared. Being in her garden was a little paradise. I mean, it was her passion to grow food in Gaverlac. And so I picked up from her the use of certain herbs, for example. I did not have a clue what tarragon was before I met Paulette. My mother used hojas de laurel, oregano, canela, cinnamon. You know, some of the very, very basics were what I saw in my mother's kitchen. But Paulette, with her fresh herbs in her garden, which were new to me, with tarragon especially, she used a lot of tarragon, but she also cooked a Creole kitchen, a Creole food, because she was Creole. And so you bring in all the what I would call the red spices, because there's a kick to them. You know, there's an earthiness to the way that she cooked. I'm remembering this petite woman, a total country woman, who would pick fruit in the afternoon, go to bed, and then get up at the crack of dawn and can all of that. And by the time I would get up the next morning, the sun would be coming through her window in Gaverlac, and she would have all these little jars of one kind or another of jam that she had already done by 7 o'clock the following morning. So those are my best memories of Paulette. I learned to eat Indian food in India. All right, so in 1995, I saw a little piece in the paper that advertised or that called for volunteers to go to India. And it was only a little clip about this big. And it said that if you were interested in being a kind of ambassador for the Rotary Foundation, that you could apply and go to India. I was introduced to a thali in India, in the more fancy homes, where you have various dishes, and you can mix or not mix according to your like. And thalis, I thought, were absolutely wonderful. You know, for breakfast, the family that I was staying with, we would sit out on the balcony, and they would bring out a breakfast thali with fruit and dried fruit and nuts and some kind of porridge or something, and that would be fantastic. And so in the Andaman Islands, I got to cook. Everywhere else I got to eat. In the Andaman Islands, I got to cook. And it was just absolutely fun and wonderful. What we were making was little potato rolls. They're very, very much like hush puppies in the South. Or these little potato rolls, and you drop them in hot oil, and they're, they taste different than the cornbread-based hush puppies, but basically it was the same idea. So the big event for the downtown Rotary Club was a visit with Mother Teresa. And that was on January the 19th, 1995. And somebody in the group says, well, Mother T, she was known as Mother T to people who worked with her. They said, so how did you get started doing this? And other than the fact that she knew that it was a calling from God for her to serve the poor, she said, she says, I saw a lot of hungry people, and I couldn't feed them by myself. So at the beginning, I went door to door and asked people for a cup of rice, if they could spare a cup of dry rice. And so when you go door to door asking people for rice and they give it to you, then you can take it back to where there's a need and you can feed people. And pretty soon, people were giving me more than just a cup of rice. They were giving me more and more so that I could feed more and more people. And one of our team members said to her, well, how do we do that? I mean, can we send you things? And Mother Teresa snapped at this person. And she said, you don't send me things. You don't send things for me to use here. You go out in your community and you find where the needs are and you serve your community. And the poor girl just kind of goes, oh, yes, ma'am. Because she was a firm believer that you do good where you are. Yes, you can reach out beyond your limitations in your community. I'm a big believer in Heifer International, where they're addressing the needs of the hungry all over the world and have been doing that for 70 years. I'm a great believer in that, but I'm also a great believer in contributing to the hunger organizations that we have in El Paso. One of a very dear friend, after he heard about my experiences in India, gave me a Madhur Jaffrey Indian cookbook. And so I can cook a fairly decent Indian meal and love it. I love the way that the kitchen smells when you are baking something. And what this particular cook calls aluminum chicken and aluminum foil, I think is what she calls it. I can't pronounce the Indian name, but the whole concept of this particular dish is that you take all these spices and ground almonds and you pat the whole chicken with all of this, and then you wrap it in foil and you put it in the oven, and when it comes out, it has absorbed all the spices and the almonds and everything else. So I don't know that I wouldn't have learned how to cook Indian food if one of my friends hadn't said, Lucy, have you ever cooked Indian food? And I'd probably have gone, no, but I'll give it a shot. But the influence of that trip, of course, was a big influence. I don't know that I have something profound to say about food, but I needed help in finding the essence of what I wanted to say. And here it goes. This is from Henri Nouwen, a Catholic priest from the Netherlands. He says, when we invite friends for a meal, we do much more than offer them food for their bodies. We offer friendship, fellowship, good conversation, intimacy, and closeness. When we say, help yourself, take some more, don't be shy, have another glass, we offer our guests not only our food and drink, but also ourselves. A spiritual bond grows, and we become food and drink for one another.